I'm Steve Schiffman, by professional lawyer. I'm also a baby boomer, as you can tell. People talk about what may happen, what happened in history. I actually lived it like a lot of people. I was in high school, in junior high school, when Kennedy got shot. I remember when Nixon was elected, the government lost. I remember when Reagan won. I remember when Jimmy Carter won and lost, and so forth. So I'm I don't want to say a relic, but I've actually lived it. And most of the time, in the last 20, 25 years, I've been doing public service work, mainly representing the United States government through USAID, which is the Agency for International Development, as well as perhaps the State Department. And that is doing what people should do in Congress, but nobody has experience here. That is advising parliaments overseas, drafting laws, being on committees. Even in Washington, D.C., when I worked at the Commerce Department, I actually wrote notes, speaking notes for the Commerce Secretary when negotiating with the Chinese, when the Vietnamese came and they wanted legislation to be consistent with American practices. Who else but I did that as well? Or when we had questions from the ambassadors of Thailand saying that we were being ripped off, or Congress, where we have our judicial and governmental affairs, we look at issues that Congress is debating. So many people say they will do these things. I've actually done so. In terms of my attitude towards government, I see it as a consensus building. It's not fighting for this or fighting for that. There's too much fighting right now. It's basically consensus building. I try to tell people when you look at legislation, it's better to have 80% of something you want and 20% nothing than 100% of zero. You can be the ideal person and never get anything done. That doesn't help the people in the country, does it? It just says, I have golden wishes. I'd rather have something that says, partly mine, partly yours, and most importantly, when you negotiate legislation, no one loses. If you say you lost, you're already on the wrong field. I gained, you gained. It's a mutual consensus. And that's what happens. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Okay. Well, so first off, I might as well address the elephant in the room. As a former Republican, do you feel you have a unique perspective when it comes to reaching across the aisle and bridging that partisan divide?
Well, I was a Republican for about a year and a half. And why was it? That was in New York City. Because I didn't believe in Democrats or Republicans running unopposed. Now, in this situation, I changed my identification because I don't believe in party politics. I don't believe in machinery. I believe in open primary. I believe you can be affiliated without being a so-called pseudo-activist, which lets the big money come into play. Now, in New York, you may recall Anthony Weiner. Remember what happened to him? Well, I wanted to run versus Democrat, and they said, no, they're too liberal. But I said, okay, what can I do? Mayor Koch of New York and others ran both as a Democrat and Republican, because he said it's not party politics, it's where you have a consensus building. So that's what I tried. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, the Democrats said I was too conservative, and the Republicans and the conservatives said, I was too liberal. I'm a lawyer. Nuance. They said, for example, would you reverse Obamacare? I said, what you really need to do is determine if it's unconstitutional. You don't change it, because if you repeal it, you're saying it's constitutional. It kind of undermines your argument. They're talking about immigration. Big point?
It's a good point.
And the other point, like on immigration, I said, did you realize that most of the people who are here, quote, illegally, are expired visas? And many of them come from Europe, from England, from other places. So you're going to say, you're going to get a Canadian and say, hey, you're expelled back to Ontario because you have an expired visa. And I said, no, nuances. I said, that's the reality of it. If you're talking about people who actually cross the border illegally for work, without their family, that's not the big issue. Why? Because I live in Florida, where agriculture is a big issue. A lot of the people, whether you like to admit it or not, come to these jobs that no American will take. As a matter of fact, Trump, believe it or not, was correct when he said, I have jobs that will pay minimum wage at $8 an hour. I won't take it. Nobody will take it. Well, work needs to be done, all right? And so, in reality, these are the type of issues, and a lot of them are fake issues. The other thing which comes into play is when I hear questions like, what about the Muslims? And how do you do that? Can you tell me, is there any American law, any record keeping that gives you a religion? There isn't any. Saudi Arabia, being a Jew, I would have to say I'm Jewish and I couldn't fly over their land. But the United States doesn't keep any records of religion, so it's maybe a hateful comment, but it's a false comment. All right? So those are the issues.
Okay. Well, getting to something you brought up a little earlier on healthcare. Now that the Supreme Court has ruled on the constitutionality of Obamacare, do you support the law as it stands? And what do you think can be done to build and improve on the Affordable Care Act?
Okay, I'm on Medicare, and I understand what's going on. I also believe in free enterprise, competition, which means parallel imports. People who buy cameras, equipment, they're typically imported, that they're not sold in the United States, you get them from Europe. The Europeans have the same medical quality of materials that we do. Matter of fact, they're made in Ireland, made in England, made in Spain, whatever the case is. But yet, the Food and Drug Administration says, no, you can't import them. So I believe that we need to bring competition in. If the Canadians can get a pill that costs 50 cents, and we charge $5 or $10, that's a ripoff. So in that case, it needs improvement. The other issue, which is very important, is portability. Right now, Medicare, the way it's structured, Obamacare, it's very state-oriented, okay? People have said that. I'm not going to insult the people from Nevada, but I always tell people here are cheap, all right? The government's cheap. They don't want to spend any money. And that's what happens when you give them the authority to spend for insurance and so forth. They'll do the minimal amount. They won't actually splurge. And so what needs to be done is saying that if I have competition, I want to have competition. So for example, on Medicare, you may be a choice of 2 or 3 managed care companies that give you full benefits. In other places, you may have 10. So what we need to do is the ability to have like I call a national approach, not just a state approach. And that requires not changing and revoking it or repealing it, but to expand it to say, okay, country, we are a national country, we are the United States of America, we're still one country, not 50 countries.
Okay. Sir, since you've been so patient,
okay. Do I get to ask?
Sure.
Okay. I guess you alluded to it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Hello. This is a question I think that's quite important. I guess it's Mr. Trump made it a little more exciting when he said China is stealing $500 billion a year. So I guess I should say it that way. But I like to say it a little bit more academically. We have an endemic problem for years of the trade imbalance. So my question is, what are you going to do to not hurt our trade, but to balance our trade? I'd like everyone to address that. China and Germany both have limitations. They make a certain amount domestically. I can go through a whole list of things. But anyway, what would you do to balance our trade? And in doing that, we can go from a weak 2% growth to a 6% growth instantly. If we do that. So we would be out of our anemic growth essentially instantly.
Okay, I'm not sure I can address specifically what we can do. However, I can tell you from experience, when I was working for the Commerce Department, I was with the China team, and I negotiated with the Chinese, both in Beijing and in Washington, D.C. And the thing that I discovered, and it's kind of sad, is that when we asked some of the big manufacturers, because of the balance of trade and so forth, General Motors and the like, what problems, what complaints do you have officially against China so we can write a complaint on the World Trade Organization? They had zero. None. They had no complaints whatsoever. Why? Because they're making so much money overseas that they don't want to change. They like the status quo. They like the balance the way it is. Keep in mind that the profits still come to the United States. They may use cheap labor overseas, but the profits stay here. And they're happy about that. All right? They get the benefit of in working overseas, which means whatever they make overseas, and it's not brought over here, tax-free. All right? We know that.
It goes to the
and so there's an incentive that they will do that. Now, on the other hand, you take the Motion Picture Association, which has very little vested interest in China. They'll complain about piracy. They're like the pharmaceutical companies. They don't want free trade. They would rather control it by high prices. And so basically, when it comes down to trade, it's a give and take, but you have to have an equal or balanced trade field. The big thing with China, and just to sum up, is their currency. Now, it's not an open currency, and they purposely keep it cheap so you get American products for nothing. Virtually, that's what it is, and it's very expensive. Remember, and I don't care what people say, China is still a communist, state-controlled economy. The Red Army controls 50% of the economy there. There are some private corporations, but they're controlled by the communist government. And so they don't do anything on the free enterprise. They do what's good for China.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Well,
we don't have time for any more questions.
Okay,
it's time
so
for
let's
closing statements.
give you a chance to close the statement.
Okay, and may ask, why do I have this kind of public service spirit and so forth? Actually, I was a Peace Corps volunteer. I was, let's say, 11 years old when JFK got elected. During his, not that I remember that much, but his great statement that he made when he was sworn in was a famous statement about ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. To me, that means a lot. And so, working as a Peace Corps volunteer, I did things that people never did. The one thing I did learn, actually two things, believe it or not. One is cultural sensitivity and respect for diversification of opinion, which is very important in Congress. It's a skill that either you have it or you don't. And the second thing is cultural sensitivity. Cultural sensitivity. You have to have that to be able to appreciate exactly what's going on. And so with that type of feeling that I had, I thought I'd just transfer it. I made a mistake. I went into public service. I didn't go into private enterprise for the most part. I don't have a pension. I don't have a retirement fund. I'm stuck like many people on Social Security and whatever I can save in the bank, and that's it. I enjoy it. Would I give it up? I have a chance, but I never look back because I always feel there's a reason why it's happening, and this is another opportunity. And, some people say they like it. I happen to enjoy the challenge of it and the goodwill. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.